Okay, so vacation homes. Oftentimes, when people have rental properties, they'll also, they'll have a combined use for that property. I used to live in Clear Lake. Clear Lake has a lot of vacation homes. A lot of people that own property up there that will rent out their homes part-time, and then they'll also go up there on weekends or something with their families and use that home for their own personal vacation. So this is a combination, a combined use of that home. There are rules with regard to how do we treat that income, okay? There are limitations on the expenses that you can claim when you use that property personally, because now we're verging into these expenses that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to deduct on property that you're using for your own personal purposes, because now it's combined business use and personal. Like, you wouldn't be able to deduct carpet cleaning on your personal house, right? But if it's a rental property, you'd be able to deduct any expense that you have to clean the carpets. So what happens when you're using it both personally and for rental purposes? So it depends on how much time it's used as a rental and how much time it's used personally. This gets a little tricky, trying to keep this straight, by the way. All right, so there are three different ways that it could be treated. One, primarily rental. With primarily rental, you claim the income, but you get to deduct all the expenses. So one. So that's one option. Second option is it's primarily personal. And third option is it's personal/rental. So they're treated in different ways. And I'm actually going to go, let's see. I want to go to the tax treatment of it before I talk about how to define each one of those. All right. So primarily rental, you report all income, all income and ordinary and necessary expenses for the rental portion. The portion of expenses that are allocated to personal are not deductible unless they're ordinarily allowed, such as mortgage, interest, and property taxes. So if there's a loss, it is deductible like any other rental, okay? So income minus ordinary, I'm going to call it O and N, rental related expenses. Losses are allowed up to the limits. Right? For primarily personal, none of the rental income is included in gross income, and none of the rental expenses are included. Okay? So no income and no expenses. So you don't do anything with slash rental, and like I said, we'll define it here in a second. For personal slash rental, you claim the income so you claim all of the income, and you deduct the expenses only to the extent of the income, so no loss is allowed. Well, I should say rental, ordinary and necessary rental related expenses, but no loss allowed. That's a D. Okay. So that's the tax treatment for those three possible classifications. So how do we define each of these? Primarily rental. The rental property is not used for more than 14 days for personal purposes, or 10% of the total rental days, if that number is more, and is rented for 15 days or more. So we can write this out in a way that actually makes it make sense. So rental property, so personal is equal to or less than 10 days. Where am I going to put this? Equal to or less than, 14 days or 10% of rental days. Well, this should be the lesser of. Let's see. Is it lesser of? Oh, greater of. Rental days. It's kind of all over the place, sorry about that. And rented for 15 days or more. So, personal use, so you gotta look at both personal use and rental use. Personal use, the greater of if it's more, the greater of if it's used more than 14 days, more than or equal to 14 days, or 10% of rental days. So, like if the rental days, I think the first thing to look at is how many days was it rented. Okay, so if it was rented for 80 days, well, 10% of 80, so it would meet this requirement. It was rented for more than 15 days. If it was rented for 80 days. And personal use was 12 days. So it meets the rented requirement, 80 days rented, 12 days personal. So personal the greater of 14 days or 10% of rental days. Well, 10% of rental days is 8 days, if it was rented for 80 days, right? So it was actually rented for 12 days, so which the 12 is greater than those two, but it's not greater than, let's see. But it wasn't used for more than 14 days. It wasn't used for more than 14 days, and it wasn't used for 10% of the rental days. So therefore it doesn't meet that requirement, even though it was rented for more than 15 days. So 80 days it was rented. 200 days it was personal. It meets the rented requirement, right? 15 days, more than 15 days, it was rented for 80 days. Personal is more than 14 days, which is greater than 10, well, the 10% of rental days would be 20 days. So 20 is greater than the 14 days. So it would be primarily rental. Is that right? Personal is, maybe that didn't sound right. Rental property is used for more than 14 days for personal purposes. Yes, 15 days or more. Confusing. No?
Why did they include the brackets? I felt like that made it more confusing.
Include the what?
For personal purposes. Or 10%.
Cause you have to, okay, so if it were, let's just say that, personal purposes, it was, and it's whichever is greater, so if personal purposes, I think there's an example down here that gives it, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Not used for more than 14 days, so. That might be the thing that's missing here. So if it's not used for whichever is for personal purposes, for the greater of 14 days or 10% of rental days, whichever is greater. Right? Am I got that right? Rental property is not used for more than 14 days. Let's go through, we'll go through an example down here and see if we can't make it, make sense. Primarily personal is property rented for less than 15 days, but is otherwise used as a personal residence. So rented for less than 15 days. Okay, this one's pretty easy. So if it's less than 15 days, then it's primarily personal. You don't have to claim any income, but you also didn't get to claim any expenses. So they use, I think they've got an example down here. Well, I'll get to the example in just a minute here. Kirk and his family live in Augusta, Georgia. Each year during the Masters Golf Tournament, they rent their house to a major corporation for $10,000 for the entire week. Because he rents his house for only 7 days, the property is considered primarily personal, and he reports none of the rental income or expenses. So he gets to pocket 10 grand and not have to claim it as income for tax purposes. All right. When a rental property is used for personal use for more than 14 days, more than 14 days. We'll do that. Okay, did I have that? Not used for more than 14
I think
days.
it's, for me, what confused me is that greater of. So
Yeah, I know.
I just put personal use equals not used for greater than or
Okay,
equal to 14 days or 10% of total rental days.
okay, say that again, not used for,
Not used for greater than or equal to 14 days or 10% of rental days,
okay,
and rented for more than 15 or equal to 15 days.
okay, so I just put not used for greater than or equal to 14 days personally.
Yeah, personally.
Yeah, not used for greater than or equal to 14 days or 10% of rental days, and it's rented for equal to or greater than 15 days. Not used for personal. Does that make sense? Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm not very good with the grade. Okay, oh, I guess I have first one through twice. And we'll look at some examples as well. So then we look at the personal slash rental, which essentially is going to be if it's not primarily personal, not primarily rental. So rental property is used for personal use for more than 14 days or 10% of the rental days, and is used for 15 days or more. Alright, so we're kind of going the opposite direction here with this personal slash rental. So is used, right? Or greater than or equal to 14 days. Or %10 of rental days. The greater of these two, right? Because this is also the greater of these two. Which essentially means if 10% of the rental days is that's 14, is about this. We'll look at the examples here. So equals greater than or equal to 14 days or 10% of the rental days, and rented days. Do I have the 15 days or? I told you this was confusing. Let's look at some examples here. Maybe that'll help clear the brain.
So for this one, what I see, the only thing that changes is the more than 14 days,
Yeah,
because the rented is still 15 days or more.
right. And what I did, I mean, I still have it as greater than, but I've got at the top, not used for and used for. So I guess, let's see, how would we attack this? First thing we would need to do, if we look at how many days it was rented. So if it was rented for less than 15 days, then it's neither primarily rental, it's not number one or number three. If it's less than 15 days. Right? Am I reading that right? Here. Rented less than 15 days. Now, with these two, 15 days or more. I don't know why primarily rental doesn't say rented 15 days or more. So the first question would be, how many days is it rented? If it was rented for less than 15 days, then it's primarily personal. If it was rented for more than 15 days, or equal to or more than 15 days, then how much was it used personally? Then we look at the personal use. Okay, so step one. Let's try and think this through. So if it was, less than 15 days equals, oops, personal. Stop. So how many days personal? Okay, how many days was it used? So no more than or can we say less than? Say less than. Equal to, less than, or equal to 14 days. Or 10% of rental days. Rental. Greater than. Greater than 14 days. Oh, this is the greater than thing. More than, I'd say more than the greater than. first question to ask, how many days was it rented? If it was rented for less than 15 days, then it's primarily personal. Don't have to do anything else. Right? So the second question you have to ask then is, how many days was it used personally? So, if the personal days are less than or equal to whichever is greater of these two. So, if it was, let's say, okay, so 80 rental, 200 personal. Alright, so how many days was it rented? Is it less than 14 days? No. So now we have to go down to step 2. How many days was it used personally? 200. So is 200 less than or equal to 14 days? No. Is it less than or equal to 8? No. Right? So, is 200 more than 14? Yes. Is it more than 8? Yes. It's rental / personal. So, let's change this a little bit. Rental is 7, personal is 2, it can't be 260. Yeah, I guess it can be 260. 260, let's give it a 3. All right. How many days rented? Was it less than 15 days? Yes. It's primarily personal. Stop. We're done. So if we change this to 100 rental and 26 personal. Okay, how many days was it rented? Less than 15? No, so we gotta go to step 2. How many days was it used personally? Okay, it was used personally 26 days. Is that less than 14 days? No. Well, we have to compare is 14 days, which one of these is greater? 14 days or 10% of the rental days? 10% of the rental days is 10. So 14 is greater. So is 26 less than or equal to 14? No. So, is it more than or greater than 14? We don't have to do the 10%. So you need to decide which is greater of these two. The 14 days or 10% of the rental days.
14.
Yeah. So, in this case, is it more than 14? Yes. So, let's do another one. Let's say, rental days are 200 and 165 personal. All right, how many days rented? 200, it's not primarily personal, go to the next step. How many days personal use? 165. All right, so which is greater? 14 days or 10% of the rental days? 10% of the rental days is 20, so 20 is greater. So, is it less than or, were the personal days less than or equal to 20? Personal days less than or equal to, no, because personal was 165. So we'll go to the next one. more than or greater of, more than the greater of 14 days or 10% of rental days, which is 20. More than 20, yes, it's rental slash personal. Does that make sense? Let me do another one. I'm gonna move this so I can actually put this in the line of vision here. And so this can actually be on there. All right. Let's do another one. Give me some numbers. How many rental days? We can't go over 365 or 366. It's a leap year. How many rental days?
14.
14. How many personal?
7.
How many?
7.
7? All right. So, how many days was it rented? Less than 15? Yep. Stop. It's primarily personal. So let's make this number a little bit bigger. I'll make it 20. It's not used very much, but it's used for 20. 20 days rental, 7 days personal. All right, how many days was it rented? Less than 15? No. Go to step 2. How many days personal use? All right, so which is greater? 14 days or 10% of the rental days? Well, 10% of the rental days is 2 days, right? Because we've got 20 rental days. 10% of those is 2 days. So we're gonna use 14. Was it used personally for less than or equal to 14 days? 7 is less than 14, so it's primarily a rental. Okay. Let's make this 20. 2020. It's not primarily personal because we're over 15. How many days personal use? So we've got to look, which is greater, 14 or, again, 2. 14 is greater, so less than or, and this is personally, 20, is 20 less than or equal to 14? No. It's going to be a rental personal. Does that make sense? It makes more sense to me now. I could probably have worded this a little bit better that, first you gotta compare, okay, 14 days or 10% of rental days. Which is greater?
I think the or after then in the A part is throwing me off. It
Okay.
feels like wiped away that.
So let's see if we can,
The way I think about it is, so, like, once we get past the personal,
yeah,
I go to the primarily rental, and then I read it the way I have it here, so it is not, so personal use, it is not used for more than 14 days or 10% of the rental, and then I look at the personal days, and if I'm, so like, for example, 20 personal days, so it is not used for more than 14 days, so that's false, because it is, so then is the next one.
right,
So that's the way, it kind of made
Yeah.
more sense to me than
yeah.
the chart. But I don't know.
This wording could be better here. But it's start with the days rented. And then we can break it down to between these two. And then the next step that you do, you look at the personal days and compare it to 14 days or 10% of rental days and take whichever, compare the personal days, here 20, to whichever is greater of these two, right? All right, I'll see if I can think of better
differently, we